Hi again then guys, and welcome to episode 11 of Global Contenders, the review series for Gran Turismo's touring car selection. And in this particular pick, we're featuring a car which is, I would say, an outstanding vehicle within the touring car category. It's a vehicle which is not a real touring car, but it's a vehicle which is notable for a number of reasons. Now, one of the reasons why I would say this vehicle is notable is for the same reason as a couple of others, which we haven't featured yet. Also, fictional cars. But that reason is, this vehicle I don't think should be a touring car at all. There is absolutely no reason why this is a touring car. It doesn't have the same visual style as a touring car. It doesn't run the same power and weight parameters as a touring car. It's just not a touring car. It's far more of a traditional GT style machine, so why they decided to classify it as a touring car is beyond me. Now, that can be said about a couple of others as well, such as the Skyline touring cars, which really should not be touring cars at all, and also the RX-7 touring car in particular, which I also don't think should be a touring car. And the reasons why I don't think those vehicles should be touring cars are, as I already mentioned, they just don't fall into anywhere near the same kind of parameters as the actual real touring cars. And I don't just mean the DTM machines, I mean the multiple different categories of touring car that we have, such as the BMW 320i, the Tickford even, the Ford Falcon XR8. It's just not anywhere near those kind of vehicles. Now, as it happens, it is a touring car, and we can't change that. So, being as it is classified by Polyphony as a touring car, we have to consider it such. So the question is, what do you get from this particular touring car, which is of course the TVR Tuscan, that could be potentially useful to you? Well, straight off the bat, this car is really, really good. It has a lot to offer. Now, the road-going Tuscan, which is also a premium, is one of my favourite super sports cars in the game. It's a brilliant vehicle, it has excellent handling if you tune it right, it's lightweight, quick for its power, and very well priced. This car takes pretty much all of those things to the next level. Now, in a straight line, it's not as quick, but that's not surprising given it's more geared towards being a handling car than a speed car. As you'd expect from a GT machine or touring vehicle, the extra downforce and reduced efficiency in terms of aerodynamics means that the top speed just is never going to be as good. The acceleration, though, can be quicker under certain circumstances due to the fact that you are running 609 horsepower and also more torque at 451 foot-pounds. This vehicle is also lighter than the road-going Tuscan, which, as I said, is itself already a light car, around 920-ish kilos if I remember correctly. This one weighs 885, and that makes it one of the lightest touring cars in the game. It's far lighter than most, if not all, of the other mainstream touring cars, real or otherwise. As far as horsepower per tonne, it's also extremely high. 688 horsepower per tonne is beyond the Alfa Romeo 155, for instance. Not necessarily as high as a CLK or the Astra, but it is higher than a lot of the others. And given how much less power than many of them it has, it really shows what an advantage that low weight can be. Now, another advantage that this car has is in terms of, well, it's actually a two-part advantage, PP and price. Many of the fictional touring cars and race cars in general do tend to be cheaper, because Polyphony realises that for the most part people don't want to pay pedigree race car money for a vehicle which doesn't exist. You're not paying for any kind of backstory, any kind of racing prowess to speak of. It's just a made-up vehicle. And it's good that they're cheaper, because it means that they actually have more of a draw for certain people. If you're paying the same kind of prices for a vehicle which isn't necessarily better, then why buy it at all? So this really gives most, at least, of those fictional race cars a big advantage, being so much cheaper than the real historically significant vehicles. And in the case of this car, it is a lot cheaper than the majority of the other touring cars. 175,000 credits is fantastic value for this vehicle. Now, in a straight line, as I already said, it is slower for top speed than some of the others. It is slower than the road-going Tuscan, and it is slower than many of the other touring cars. But the acceleration is strong thanks to the low weight. And one of the great things about the racing Tuscan, just like with the road version, is that it has just enough power and such a small amount of weight combined to mean that its average speed around tracks where you can't really use top-end performance can be higher than a vehicle which may even have more power, because you've got a lower centre of gravity, the car itself is smaller, it doesn't have the huge body kits that many of the DTM machines have, and the fact that the weight is so much lower means that you can weave through corners much easier than many other touring cars. Now, as far as PP, as I said, that is also an advantage, and the PP on this particular model is 607 fully tuned. That's pretty reasonable. And it's not surprising that it's not quite as high because it is running less power. That being said, for its PP, this is a brilliant car. And because it's a fictional touring car, you can also paint it, change the number, etc. You can even change the wheels, if I remember correctly. So overall, although it's not necessarily many people's first choice of touring car, the Tuscan is an excellent one to go for. And if you like supporting smaller companies like TVR, I personally love supporting companies like that, TVR, Marcos, Ginetta, those much smaller companies that tend to get forgotten or passed over, Panos, Callaway, those kind of manufacturers, then this allows you to support those smaller brands, TVR of course in particular in this case, but in a way that you can actually have a good, strong chance of getting victories out of the car. So for 175 grand, you just can't go wrong with owning this Tuscan. It's a definite must-have for any touring car enthusiast. So I definitely recommend checking it out. And that's it for this particular episode. So I'll see you guys next time. And as always, thanks for watching.